Sarah Morgan is a major problem in Starfield. Her incurious nature is the antithesis of everything Constellation, the group she leads, by the way, supposedly stands for. In this video, I'll discuss every way Sarah Morgan ruins the main theme of Starfield and how I would improve her role in the story. Spoilers ahead for the whole of Starfield. When we first meet Sarah Morgan at the lodge, she and the other members are just standing in a circle waiting for us. She's a bit suspicious of us, which is fine. Good, even. However, upon questioning her, she doesn't successfully tell us anything about Constellation or what they're working on. Talking to the others later, I pieced together that they've been searching for these artifacts for 2 years, and Constellation as a group have been around for 50 years. In my first 5 hours of the game, no one was able to give me any examples of Constellation expeditions. They're a pretty secret organisation, but people seem to think fondly of them and think of them as heroes. But why? Maybe you can find this information somewhere later, but if I'm being asked to join and care about an organisation as a player, then I need to care now. This is more of a Constellation problem, but it ties into what makes Sarah useless as their leader. When asking Sarah about what she loves exploring and nothing else. Insert montage of Sarah Morgan complaining while I explore.
This better be good.
Mission or not, I can't even imagine why you'd take part. I'm going to be upfront with you. I'm not happy visiting anything related to the Freestar Collective. Free for 200 years, and this city is the best the Collective can come up with? Here's hoping they'll be kept on a short leash. You haven't let me down. You've simply given me cause for concern.
The amount of times she disliked me doing something that was a bit risky but ultimately leads to answering the mysteries of the universe was honestly shocking. In the United Colonies questline, she chastised me in front of the whole council even though it was about accessing sealed records with mysteries to the universe, and she didn't even apologise when there was a Terramorph attack 30 seconds later. At the end of the storyline, you get the choice of unleashing a bacteria that will kill off the Terramorphs, or introduce a previously extinct natural predator of the Terramorphs, who are otherwise friendly to humans. The bacteria option carries a small chance, and I mean tiny chance, that it will mutate and kill humans. It's actually an extremely negligible amount, but I was more drawn to the idea of reintroducing an extinct species. You get to see the animal and it's cute, and it's good to stop animals going extinct. So I picked that one. Our good friend Sarah hated this. In fact, she says,
Well, I'm disappointed that you didn't trust the science.
Excuse me? Is it just me, or is in reintroducing an extinct species also science? Most of Constellation hates this choice, but Sarah's response is particularly annoying. It just proves that the people who wrote this game had no interest in anything scientific other than space is cool. I think it's generally a good thing that you can't really predict what the companions in this game are going to love or hate, but there's no variety in their opinions. Sarah Morgan should be able to weigh the pros and cons of both of these choices. As you travel with Sarah, she tells you that when she was part of the military, she was involved in a space battle where she was in charge, and instead of fleeing, she demanded her crew fight in an impossible situation. She has regrets about this, as when it finally came time to use the escape pods, she sent her crew off in a pod that she later realised was faulty, and she herself escaped in the last pod. The escape pod landed on the nearest planet where Sarah awaited rescue alone for a year. She could locate the other escape pod, however, it was too far away to reach by foot, and she assumed that because they didn't make contact with her, that they must all be dead due to the fact that the pod was broken, and therefore mentions the location of the other escape pod to no one else, and instead chooses to wallow in her grief and regrets for 10 years. This is meant to be why Sarah is so cautious about Constellation and makes sure all the paperwork is in order, because instead of pushing pens, she was busy pushing her crew to the limits. Personally, I believe Sarah's story falls apart after 10 seconds of thought. Sarah knew the other escape pod was broken, so why would she assume it would be able to contact anyone? I'm also not saying that her grief and regrets and the way she approaches Constellation are unreasonable or ridiculous. It's an entirely realistic reaction. However, it's not a compelling trait for the leader of an exploration group. I think they should have made Sarah go the other way and have her so completely obsessed with exploration to make sure her crew didn't die for nothing. Instead, Sarah eventually comes to you and is like, hey, maybe we should try to find them and bring their army tags back to their family. You ask one guy and he instantly gives you the location of where Sarah was rescued, and you can visit her escape pod to see the location of the other shuttle. At the location of Sarah's crew, which has been knowledge for 10 years, I remind you, you find a little girl all by herself. She says her mom and dad are dead, but they told her great things about Sarah Morgan, and Sarah basically decides to adopt her. This means that if Sarah tried to find the truth earlier, more lives could have been saved. But the worst part is that Sarah never comments on this. She never feels guilty about not looking for them before, and instead tries to guilt the UC army into feeling guilty about letting a little girl down. Personally, I would fix this by having it so Sarah requested that the area was searched and she was lied to and told it was searched and they found everyone dead, or her request was refused and she climbed the ranks of every organisation she could find in hopes of getting the funds to explore. When our character joins Constellation, she should be mid-sweep of the planet, and you help her pinpoint the place she crashed. Further into the story, a member of Constellation dies, and it's based on your relationship with each character and which location you choose to save. However, at least on the first timeline, I believe this should always be Sarah who dies. Sarah should die protecting Constellation so everyone can escape as a way to make up for her making her previous crew fight until the end. In future timelines, your relationships and decisions should be the factor in who dies. I guess the fact that Sarah elicits a reaction in me at all actually makes her one of the better members of Constellation. Like, what the hell is this guy bringing to the table? Overall, I actually ended up liking Sarah a lot more in this playthrough. However, there's some serious flaws in her story that could have easily been fixed. As the first companion you are forced to spend time with, she should be the one who gets you excited about exploring. But instead you're stuck with someone who wants you to do everything by the book, even though she told you you didn't have to when you first joined. In future games, I hope Bethesda can give us some companions with some variety and actual conflict. Thank you so much for watching. I'd appreciate it if you could like and subscribe and leave a comment on your thoughts on Starfield.